Hi, this is Robert with Space Age, and today I'm just going to run through the lenses that I have in my bag. It's going to take a while to refocus. So I'm shooting with the GY LS300, and I'm using a Tamron. Ooh, I don't remember the size. Is it 12 to 24? 12 to 28. Now, as we all know, the LS300 has very slow autofocus. So it may be coming in and out. I'm not even going to turn on focus peaking on my monitor because I don't expect it to. It'll just frustrate me seeing how slow it. Oh, you know what? I'll just go ahead and try. Alright, so right now I'm in focus. That's pretty good. This lens gives decent bokeh because behind me things are a little bit out of focus. That's pretty good. And I'm using the Aperture Tamron H528C light. That's the single light that I'm using. So I'm an f2.8, even though this is an f4 lens, because I have the Metabone speed booster. This is an f2.8. So I'm shooting at ISO 800, f2.8, 24 frames per second, 4800 frame shutter speed, 48 frames per second shutter speed. And even though this light is showing at 55, the white balance from the camera said 5200 Kelvin. You know. All right, so that's this lens. It looks fairly decent. Now I'm going to switch over to. I'll do the Canon 35mm. So hold on. I just recorded a whole segment without hitting the record button. I missed the remote control of the Canon DSLR. JVC, add remote wireless control to this. Since you add a wireless receiver to it, just put remote control option. Maybe there's a way. I'm going to look that up. Okay, so this is my 35mm lens, which is a f2. Right now I'm shooting at 2.8. But like I said, because I have the speed booster, I can get up to 1.4. We'll be able to compare the Tamron, just the image quality. That's what I'm looking for. Which lens gives me good image quality? There's some issues I'm having between lenses when I was shooting with my 80D and the Tamron. Excuse me, it's a Tokina. Oh, good grief, I'm getting all this stuff wrong. It's a Tokina lens. That's the 12 to 28. So with my 80D, it didn't look that great. I'm trying out some different picture styles with the 80D, but this is a Super 35, and this is a full frame lens, so we got a full frame picture here. Maybe we'll see how this lens works differently. Now I'm going up to 1. This is f2. I want to see what the monitor says it looks like. It's really nice image. Of course, my depth of field is going to be so much smaller. This is in focus, and as I was saying before, the focus on this takes forever. So let's do a count. In focus, out of focus, 1/100, 2/100, 3/100, 4/100, 5/100, 6. You know what? I don't think autofocus works with this lens. I don't think autofocus works with this lens. So now let's switch out. I'm at 2. This is 1.8, according to my focus peaking, which is necessary. I am now in focus. Out of focus. Out of focus. In focus. Very narrow depth of field. 1.4, that's the best we can do. In focus, out of focus, out of focus, in focus. But look at that bokeh. Now I'm wondering, let's see my exposure. Wow. Even the sweatshirt is hot at 1.4. skin right here is hot right here. I guess we're so close to the light at this point. But 1.4 is probably a little bit too bright. Because everything behind me is just blown out. The window, I don't think you'll get any detail. I'm over 100 IRE. So let's just stick to 1.8. This is still a bit hot, but there's very few hot spots on my face. So that's the 35mm. Now let's switch over to the 50mm, which is a 1.8 lens. Now, oops. Now the issue with this lens is going to be, it is noisy. So we're on autofocus. This is a noisy lens. And it's hunting like crazy and it can't get me. There we go. All right, what are we showing? This is 1.8, so, and because it's hunting, wow. I wish they would just release something to fix. They've released 2 firmware, or is it 3? 2 firmware updates for the LS300, and none of them has dealt with. None of them has dealt with the autofocus, which is just terrible. All right, but now you can't see. I mean, everything behind me is just milky, absolutely milky. Yeah, I'm in focus, but it's going to keep hunting. So this is at 1.8. If I take it up to 1.2, I'll probably have to drop the light. I mean, everything is so blown out already. Well, my background's in focus, but I'm still not, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. And wait, maybe if I get in the way of the background, it'll focus on me. Boy. And I love this camera, but it's never going to be on autofocus for me. Plain and simple, it just won't. Alright, that's enough of that. Just stop. Stop making all this noise. Oops. Oh. Nope, wrong way. And I gotta scoot back. Okay. Now my screen is telling me my beard is in focus. Wonderful. What am I testing out? Let's see. I want some opinions about which lens looks the best between the Tokina. See there, it's in focus. The Tokina 12-28, this is f4 lens. My 35mm 2.0 lens and my 50mm 1.8. And I have a couple of other lenses I can test as well. On my 60D, I have the Tamron 17-50. There's a problem with this lens. It doesn't have infinity focus anymore, so its focus is not that great any longer. But I'll test this one out as well. This is an f2.8. Now, interestingly enough, even with the speed booster on, I can only get to 1.4. So I'm wondering if I had an f1 lens on this, an EF f1 lens, if I can get any lower than f1. I also have a manual, completely manual Bauer lens, 16mm, and I can try that and see image quality. I'm not going to grade any of this. I'm just going to put it up on YouTube and just a lens comparison. All right, so I'm going to try this one. Oh, let me check exposure again. Exposure, skin tones are in the proper IRE, but this is all blown out. Once again, I'm not going to color grade. I'm just going to upload this and see what it looks like. Me being halfway out of focus all the time. Oh, this lens doesn't autofocus at all on the LS300. Not at all. So I'm not even going to try. Alright, so this is my Tamron 17-50. I've had this lens the second longest. Ooh, it's going on 6 years now. But you can see the vignetting around it. The good thing is the LS300 has a this feature where you can zoom in. I think it's called variable scanning. I'll double check. But you can zoom in on the picture to get rid of, so you can zoom in on the sensor, excuse me, to get rid of the vignetting. There's no bokeh with this lens, and I'm shooting at 2.0 f2. Everything is crystal clear back here. It's very interesting. So this is the 17-50. What am I shooting at? That's 17. Yep, no bokeh. I mean, everything is crystal clear. Well, let me focus on me for a second and see. Oh, there we go. This is why autofocus is so important. I keep going the wrong direction. Yeah, now focusing closer. There you go. Now all the way back down to focus. Come up here. This is near focus. Go back a little bit. See, you turn it a little on focus ring, but you can move back like this before you get back to focus. So this is my 17-50 lens. It used to be one of my favorite because it was 17-50 at 2.8. But once the focusing started to get out of whack, I don't use it as much as I used to. Alright, so I do have the 16mm Bauer lens I'm going to test out now. This is my 16mm 2.5 Bauer. Excuse me, it's a T 2.2. So it's not an F. It's a T stop, not an F stop lens. So let's test this one out. Alright, at 16mm, this is a huge lens. I mean, you can see everything, the computers, the monitors, the whole room. Good grief, that's a really wide lens. I must not have been, when I had the 12, I must have been shooting closer to 28 than 12, because 12 should be even wider. Now you see the vignetting on the side, but like I said, I can get rid of that using the feature on the JVC. Let's see. Now, because this is a total manual lens, I'm actually shooting at between T2.8 and T4. And that's my son walking in the background. Now, according to my monitor, I am almost perfectly exposed. So I'm getting much better light transmission. That's what the T stands for, rather than the focal mathematics. And my camera's about to die, so I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. And I do have my 24-105 lens, so I'm going to plop that on there and then finish off and then ask some questions. Okay, luckily I have two batteries. The JVC batteries aren't the cheapest in the world, but I was able to get two of them because I happened to leave the charger at the office. I have a whole podcast episode about being prepared, and I really wasn't when I took my case home. Alright, so now I'm going to switch to my last lens, which I do have here, the Canon 24-105. Here's my 24-105. This is one of my favoriteest lenses. Yes, favoriteest is not a word, but this is my favorite lens because it has a long range that it can deal with, 24-105 obviously. It's f4. Oh, I wish it was 2.5, but then at 2.8. But then at 2.8, you only get to 24-70, and this lens is muy sharp, very very sharp. All right, so I'm at 2.8 now. 2.8 is as low as I can get with the speed booster. I'm in focus. My exposure is a bit low. My skin tone is now at 40 IRE, and you really want to be closer to 60. So I would just have to get closer to the light source, or, you know, what else could I do? I could lower the shutter speed, make it really give you that other effect. Shoot 24 frames a second while the shutter speed is at 24 frames a second. It's not that much of a difference. I'd still render out 24 frames a second. But I like this lens. You get decent bokeh. Let me get real close to the screen. get in focus. Now, that's scary even for me. So you get decent bokeh with this. You get decent out of focus background. But I like the lens. I keep it on this camera the most of all. If I'm shooting an interview, it gives me a chance to zoom in and zoom out. The zoom is fairly smooth. And autofocus works on this lens. Well as it can work on this camera. It also includes image stabilization. So let's see how long it takes to focus. Yes, it does show autofocus. And we're waiting, and we're waiting. I mean, quite a bit is in focus on this. And we're still waiting. And we're going to give up because we don't have time. Let me get closer. And it's quiet. Compared to the 35, oh, you should hear the 35, it's terrible. And the 50mm isn't that great either. So I'm out of focus again, and we're waiting, we're waiting. This isn't the fault of the lens, it's the fault of the camera. And we're waiting, but you can't drag on this too long. Maybe it thinks I'm close enough to being in focus. All right. So that's it, that's my range of lenses. Once again, to go over it, it's we can start with the widest one, the Tokina 12 to 28. Fairly decent. It works really well on this camera. Not so much so on the 80D, but maybe that's my settings. So it works very well on this camera. I have the 17 to 50, which no longer works as well as I'd like, and I may just put this one up for sale. Email me if you want this. I'll give a good price. Then I have my 35mm, which I really like, f2. It's not the sharpest, it's a bit soft, but it does have, it's usable. It's very noisy too. My 50mm 1.8, the Nifty-Fifty. Ugh. What can you say? You have to have this. I'd like to get the STM model so it's quieter, because this one is fairly noisy. But it's a good lens. Then my 24 to 105 and my 16mm, which is a lot wider than I thought. I mean, I understand that the 12 should be a wider lens, but with this can get very bright. You can get, the aperture opens up really wide on this. You can get in a lot of light, and it works really well. I have not used it as much because on interviews it's a little bit too wide. If I wanted to get a whole lot of background, I could use this. But there you go. Now let me know which lens you think I should get next, and I'll look into that. Because I am on the lookout for new. I have to replace the 17 to 50, and I need some faster lenses. So send me your suggestions. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.